Thank you everyone for coming to this very exciting panel. Today we have 4 great speakers from different low and middle income countries. These people have thought about EA in these settings and have done some sort of community building efforts in these different regions. So I think this will be a very interesting exchange of knowledge between all of us. This is one of the biggest panels we've had. We had to fit the entire globe into this small space. So of course, we're missing like a lot of representatives from many other places who have done also really cool work around effective altruism in low and middle income countries. But yeah, here we hope to do a small space to share some of these interesting experiences. Okay, so I'll let the speakers introduce themselves. We have people from the Philippines, from South Africa, from Russia, from Nigeria, from Mexico, from Brazil, and from Colombia. And they have come across a long way. They took very long flights to be here. And we're very interested in hearing about their thoughts. So they will be the 4 main speakers. And we will be the 3 moderators, the representatives from South America. So we're very happy to have you here. So we'll pass for a brief introduction of each one of you, then each one of us. And then we'll pass to the questions. Hopefully we'll have time for a Q&A at the end. And so let's go ahead. So Elmer?
Hi guys, good afternoon. Buenas tardes. I'm Elemerei Cuevas. You can call me Elmer, and I am the full-time community builder from EA Philippines.
Hey, I'm Jordan. I have done community building for a while. I'm from South Africa, Cape Town specifically. I did some university group stuff in South Africa. I've done this assortment of different community building projects since then.
Hey everyone. I'm Alex, originally from Russia. I co-founded EA Russia and have been working on it for multiple years. And now I run EA Anywhere group. And basically what we're trying to do is to make sure that people without local groups nearby, people from LMICs can have a touch point with the EA community, can receive support, and we help them to navigate through the EA landscape. Basically I'm doing a lot of virtual community building, EAGx virtual conference, and in general supporting virtual ecosystems within the EA.
Hi everyone, my name is Zakariyau Yusuf. I'm from Nigeria. I'm doing community building in Nigeria, specifically at Effective Altruism Nigeria, which I founded in 2020. Before that, or previously, I worked at 2 EA-aligned organizations, specifically Family Empowerment Media and New Incentive. And recently, I was doing some research on strengthening the national implementation of BWC.
I'm Leo. I've been doing community building in Brazil since 2015, and I work with ConderCamp projects.
I'm Sandra, and I'm working for Effective Altruism for Spanish speakers since 2020. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. And finally, I'm Aristizábal. I am from Bogotá in Colombia. I've been involved in some community building activities in Colombia, also in Mexico, and also in the entire Spanish-speaking community, and also working with other LMIC groups as well. Very happy to have you here. Cool. So we'll pass to the question.
Okay, the first question is, what is effective altruism in low and middle income countries, and do you think that should be different to high income countries?
So I think my perspective on this is something like, I think effective altruism principles are pretty universal. I think just really focusing on those core principles is something that people can do anywhere in the world. I think there definitely are differences with implementation and some of the kind of higher order work that's being done. But yeah, I think anyone, anywhere can engage with EA.
To add to what Jordan said, I actually agree with what he said. And when you actually ask someone randomly about the 4 ideas that you agreed with, which is about helping others, everyone is equal, helping more is better than helping less, and our resources are limited. If you ask someone on the spot, everyone will say yes in a heartbeat, that they would agree with all these things. Theoretically, they know that this is true, but in practice, it will be different in LMICs. I just believe that it's easier for people to extend their help when their basic needs are met. And in LMICs, that's not very common. But again, the fundamentals are the same. But like in execution, there's the differences between high-income countries and low and middle-income countries.
Yeah, I agree with most of what speakers said. I think like most of the fundamental principle are universal. Still, I think like there is some limitation to some extent on resources. Like resources within the people from low middle income countries, specifically like more on capacity. When I say capacity, it encompasses many things, but maybe I should not go back. But yeah, I think like the fundamental kind of principle are the same. Thank you. Yeah. So.
Okay, second question. Do you think geographic diversity can bring epistemic diversity to EA? And if so, how? And if you have any examples as well?
Yeah, I can go first again. Zakariyau, do you want to? Yeah, so I think this is an interesting question. I think, yeah, it might be worth just like mentioning kind of what we mean when we talk about epistemic diversity. Yeah, so I think, you know, like when we're trying to tackle all these like crazy problems in the world, that like having a variety of viewpoints can be useful. It can lead to like innovation. Yeah, I think there's been some research to show that like diversity leads to innovation. And yeah, so I think by like epistemic diversity, we mean broadly something like this: people coming from different kinds of viewpoints, people, you know, potentially having different sorts of values and this kind of thing. Yeah, and I think this is often correlated with geographic diversity. I think it's not always like necessarily the case that geographic diversity leads to epistemic diversity, but I think it can be like a pretty good proxy for working on this.
Yeah, that color.
Yeah, I would add probably that having more kind of epistemic diversity can bring more health criticism to EA, and in general, like my experience was that like people from non-Western countries having like more kind of community collectivism mindset comparing to more individualistic viewpoint of like Western backgrounds, and it's yeah, as I said, it brings kind of healthy criticism sometimes, or like kind of fresh viewpoints. So
awesome, thank you.
I can maybe like mention some specific examples that I'm quite excited about. One is like, you know, somebody that I have a lot of affinity for is Cecil Abungu from Kenya, and he's been working on kind of like making a specifically like African indigenous case for long-termism, and I think this is potentially like really powerful, both to like enhance the way that we think about the long-term future, as well as like get more buy-in from people around the world.
Yes, and Cecil was going to be the other speaker in this panel, and sadly he couldn't attend. Yeah, but he has done really, really cool work around this. And yeah, I agree with Jordan, and also in my experience, I've seen that having geographic diversity has complemented epistemic diversity in a very interesting way, in which it kind of leads to people making questions that are usually not seen in high-income countries. So we share common like needs and interests, and then when we engage with those questions, like start working on those questions, then I think that leads to like new ideas being created and new concepts, and us being like aware that there are some particular answers that like are better fits for our context than to others. Okay, the next question is, which effective altruism or long-termist ideas have resonated the most and the least in the different contexts where you all work?
Yeah, maybe I can go first. Yeah, so I think in my context, I can say most of the idea or topic that resonate with most people about improving governance and institutional decision making, economic growth, global health and development. Already most people has interest in those, and reducing the risks of climate change. I think most people, this idea has resonated with them, and I think the least that I can say is more on the idea of people to become more of veganism, like to become vegans. Most people has not subscribed to the idea. It's not like that we have, even in our community, we have people that are kind of into animal advocacy, but I don't think if they are yet to be vegans, I don't know. I don't ask more personal questions, but I think most of the people, the idea are yet to resonate with them. But also, we are seeing the rise in like alternative protein initiative currently in Nigeria. I think in the past, last year, there is between June to November, almost 2 people reached out to me kind of because they want to learn more about what Good Food Institute is doing. So they are trying to see like how they can create like alternative protein, mostly in University of Kogi and the one from Lagos. I think they reached out to me like they want to do more partnership with Good Food Institute so that they can advance the alternative protein in Nigeria. So what I don't understand here is like what are the reasons that they are trying to do this? Is it like more of they want to reduce the factory farming because they are not more EA, because they are not in my community? So I don't know exactly why they are trying to do it. Is it more of for profit making, or I don't exactly know the picture because I was not in more deep conversation with them. And another idea that I think is not most reasonable with people, it's not like it is not most resonates, is that of extending compassion to like far future with regard to AISPT, working on AISPT and nuclear security, because most people think like we don't have enough kind of capacity or technology, or like we don't have nuclear security in our context currently in the world of Africa. If you want to say you want to work on nuclear security, you have to move to Europe, like England, or you have to move to San Francisco, so that you can go and find opportunities that you can advance if you want to work on this problem. But I also have one community member recently that developed interest in working on AISPT, because I think he has personal experience, because he narrated to me, like in the company that he's working, they have like some machine. So the work that machine is doing now is kind of like when go beyond his imagination. So like, he's kind of that's why like what motivated him to start thinking like, yes, we need to start working at this kind of AI alignment and AI safety. But apart from these two, I think biosecurity and pandemic preparedness is something that resonates with people. Most of the people think like it is important, it is necessary. I think like the limiting factor here is within like maybe people kind of there's a lot of things maybe that I don't want to have to go in deep into, like more of low capacity to or opportunity, like they can be able to advance the area. So let me just allow someone to speak to that.
Thanks. Very interesting.
Then go ahead. So the Philippines, our community is more near-termist than long-termist. So we have a lot of interest in global health and development, mental health, animal welfare, and even more specifically, fish welfare. We've recently had a study on alternative proteins, the state of alternative proteins research, also in the Philippines. And with those discussions, people have a lot of complaints with our government and stuff. So hence also the rise of interest with improving institutional decision making. But we also have a handful of people interested in AI safety. Just a few, but there is interest there. Yeah.
Cool. Anything else to add? Okay. Awesome.
Okay. Which advices would you give to junior people from low and middle income countries who want to have a more impact with their careers?
Okay. For me, I think like I will relate to what Angela wrote on the EA forum post. She made a kind of a long post on career advice for people from low middle income country, and I think it was kind of to review the career advice that she wrote there, most of what she kind of write actually resonate with most of the people like me. Personally, it resonated with some of my view and some of my, on how people should approach the career, like if you want to make a impactful thing with their career. Still, two things that I want to emphasize more is on building career capital. Like if you want to make a great impact with your career from a middle-income country, start building your career capital. Career capital, one I say, maybe it include a lot of things, but things along like what are these career capital that you needed so that you can leverage in the work that you want to do. Secondly, I think it's more on like people should be more kind of narrow focus, like should not be more locally focused when they are starting out. Like they should think broadly, like globally, and then when they are trying to kind of focus, then they should see like what are their personal fits, like what are their personal fits, and so that they can be able to work in the area that they are considering. And then lastly, I think is more of when you are trying to kind of set you should try as much as you can to see what are the career or job that you can take that meet kind of that you are enjoying, and they kind of will accommodate some of your needs. We are all humans, so we all so have some needs, kind of personal need or other things. Yeah.
I can say some things about this. I think it can be more difficult coming from a lower, like LMIC, to like, I guess like follow a lot of the standard EA career advice, which you see on like 80,000 hours, which is like often or mostly tailored towards people from the US or the UK, perhaps like some European countries. So I think there probably are a couple more like challenges or some like bottlenecks to overcome when you're coming from LMICs. But yeah, I think like, as I said originally, I think like a lot of the basic principles stay the same. I definitely agree with Zakariyau. Like, I think it's important to take like a broad global approach to your career. We shouldn't limit ourselves just because of like the context that we're living in. And I think potentially it's also just like very important to connect yourself to the global network, get involved with kind of like international opportunities, and potentially even like maybe document your journey as well. Could be really useful for other people to find out about that, and could help inspire other people.
Yeah, I think something that was like really useful for me is to engage more with, as Jordan said, like international community through different volunteer programs, internships at like various EA orgs. Because I think it was kind of a failure mode for the first maybe like half a year when I started working on community building in Russia, but I was like in a bubble of just like Russian speaking people, and it was also like kind of constraint for me in like building my like career capital, learning from the kind of best experts. And one thing that I can recommend is check the AA internships board, which covers like a lot of opportunities within the AA to like upskill, to like collaborate with some great orgs that are like very welcoming and
like me, actually, most of my kind of skill that I learned, more especially on the project implementation program, is mostly come from my work at new incentive at early stage. Actually, that's where I learned a lot of things, and I later come and do some internship work at new incentive, the family environment media. That's why I was also able to learn a lot of things. So I think these types of skill kind of like early work and actually give me a lot of kind of advantage for me to be, which I'm still seeing within our community, that I'm still thinking, how can I try and kind of upskill people in our community? Because I was thinking sometimes like, I'm not saying like I know anything, But my work, like my exposure to this organization, working in this organization, give me some advantage sometimes to be able to do some other things that I want some of our community to kind of do. But that's some of the deal we share with Brian from EAGxLatAm. Sometimes it's also like narrating like she want the community like to be more proactive or like taking more action with some of the ideas. But like if you like, they are also kind of like sometimes limited with some kind of skills that they needed to enable them to take action that matters. Yeah, so that's why I think like career capital, building career capital is important, especially. But the question is, how can we find like space that will provide this opportunity for skill living? I think there's another question for another dignity.
Something. Okay.
Maybe have like two concrete but controversial recommendations as well. Just like, yeah, unfortunately, just because the way the world is, two things which might be really useful is like get really good at English and potentially move to a higher income country. It's worth considering those.
I want to add some, and I think that from community building is very important, create and help in the pathways to the new ones. For example, in the Spanish speaker community, we do a lot of work trying to help them to find mentors. But other thing that it's especially relevant in our regions, it's encourage to the new people, the students, to be very introspective about their interests, their skills, because it's very easy that go to the international community and receive feedback from people who don't have any idea about your context, and these ideas could not work in your specific case, or make you feel that maybe you don't have I don't know, an concrete example. Someone who have a background in biotechnology receive the feedback to probably should do translations. It's like, okay, maybe this is not the best fit for me. It's good feedback. It's feedback and it's valuable, but they have to do a lot of self-reflection about what they want and believe in their own skills, because could be easy that not be they could be confused with several opinions.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I agree with all of your takes. I would maybe add, yeah, like having a very low bar to put yourselves out there, like write on the EA forum and comment on other people's posts, and that can have a super big impact on your careers. And I can say it also for like my own personal experience. Yeah, and referring to what Zakariyau was mentioning regarding this EA forum post, this was a forum post that was done with an entire group from other LMICs, with some people from India and from Malaysia, and it received also feedback from people from many other countries. So that's yeah, I think that makes it like very like valuable piece of work. If anyone is interested in reading about it, it's called EA Career Guide for People from LMICs. I think that's the correct name on the EA forum. And yeah, okay, so let's move to the
And come to EAGs.
Yes.
So, which have been the most successful community building activities in your contexts?
I can start with this. So I think the most effective activity that we've done is really our intro fellowships. I know that there are some other orgs who prefer to do one-off events or like an intro EA retreat, which is like a one-time big time thing. But like in our case, like what we've seen success with is like the real like 7-8 week long intro fellowships. We normally market it like in general for anyone who's interested. And then for the people who graduate, that's where we see the people who are more committed into EA. Maybe at the start, they're not really committed, but if they finish the fellowship, that's a good show of interest. Also doing one-on-ones with the community. And yeah, as Leo mentioned, inviting people to like EAGs and EAGx's. Last year when the borders opened up, I took it as a task for myself to coordinate Filipinos apply to like EAGs and EAGx's. That involved like encouraging people to sign up, also like checking on their application because sometimes it's bad. And then so across the 7 EAGs, EAGx's last year, we've had like at least 49 distinct Filipinos who were able to attend these conferences. And then these 49 were actually the people who have more progress in their career and more stable epistemics, and they're the ones who are more engaged with our community. I hope I'm drafting an EA forum post and composite report about this, and hope to publish by February so you can see the progress about EA Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think for me, most of our activities or initiative that most people, I think, kind of find helpful is community meet-up and retreats that we did. Most of the people were able to come together, engage deeply in discussing idea, kind of knowledge sharing session, discussion. So I think it helped people kind of really, and most people still recommend it that we continue doing such types of events so that they can be able to engage deeply in discussing most of this idea. Another thing is like we do information sharing and guidance through our monthly newsletter. So we are trying to include a lot of different things, like from career advising, upcoming conferences, kind of latest information that are relatable to people within the EA, share opportunity both from job that we think are accessible to our community, and then internship, volunteering position, even scholarship position we used to share that we think are impactful and that can be accessible to our people. So people really find this kind of helpful, and they recommend that we should continue doing it. Last one is more of a fellowship program. So most of the people that we are graduated from the fellowship program are still kind of engaging with the community. Like sometimes we can do like a online call with speaker, people randomly join in or kind of attend one of our events, but they will not be feel kind of engaged like that. But all people that we graduated from a fellowship, that you will see they are still engaging with their group. So I think that's one of the most successful activities that we are doing. What?
Well, I can add a few thoughts from EA Anywhere kind of experience. So something that I'm trying to create is a environment, like kind of supportive and welcoming environment where people are comfortable with sharing their successes, but also like supporting each other and like maybe like sharing failures. And so we have like a space to share like small successes that can be like really like small steps, like, hey, I posted my first EA forum post, or like I just applied for these internships or internship or something like that, which also like inspire other group members to take action. I think it's like really important. And even like celebrating rejections, something that we did last year, which is like providing a space where we can kind of just celebrate rejections. Like, I don't know, because it's like happening with everyone, but we don't talk about it, and it feels like it's happening only with me. Like I got rejected like 9 times out of 10, and it's like only me. Everyone is like so successful, but actually when you understand that it's like it's natural to get rejected, and like you feel like you don't feel like an imposter or something. So creating this supportive environment, I think, is very important.
If I can also add about that environment part, one thing I started when I became a community builder is that I let my community know that they can approach me for anything, whether that's EA related or not EA related. I don't want to enforce people that, hey, I'm just an EA person, ask me just about EA. But no, I want to tell them, if you have problems for even anything outside EA, you can approach me. I can be your big brother. If they have problems, like they're overwhelmed with about EA or the community, they're allowed to step back. Like I don't want to make it. I try my best not to make the community cultish. I don't require everyone to be in complete attendance for everything. If you're busy, fine, come attend the next one. So I think it's just a good practice to just like people are people. And sometimes they're busy, sometimes they're going through some things. If they want to be engaged with EA, they're free to engage. If they don't want to engage, that's okay. If they want to come back and re-engage, that's super, and they're super welcome. So that's the one thing that I've been doing, and I think it's working out well.
Awesome. Okay, the next question is, what do you think are the best arguments against doing community building in low and middle income countries, or in other words, is making, are like LMICs worth doing community building in?
with.
Yeah, I have a couple of like things I can say. I think I have like fairly low confidence in all of these. But yeah, for the sake of argument, I can say a few things. Yeah, one is potentially just like outside of kind of like economic and intellectual hubs, it's potentially just like less impactful. The kind of work that people do in these areas might be less impactful. And it might just be more useful, as I said, like to just encourage people to move to other places. And so maybe it's not actually worth like putting effort into having these local communities in areas which, you know, aren't as productive, let's say. Yeah, I'm not sure how true this is. I think especially for certain kinds of work, it can be very useful to, you know, for example, be somewhere like Nigeria, where a lot of like global health and development work is being done on the ground. But potentially if you're working on kind of stuff like technical AI safety research, you would want to be in like London or San Francisco. Yeah, I will give other people a chance to say other things.
Yeah, a little bit related to that. I think that my experience with like, this talent drain problem has been mostly like actually very positive. Like there isn't that much of a conflict as I thought there would be. And when someone that is very talented leaves to work in an international organization, that's actually like a very successful situation. And we should all feel like super happy that this is happening. And also I've seen this, that when this happens, there's also a lot of opportunities for like new mentors being like them being future mentors for new junior people in their local communities. And this happens all the time. And yeah, we see many of the people from the Spanish-speaking community who are now working in international projects, but they have one-on-ones with people from Mexico, and they can give them advice on how to connect with international community or how to apply to new jobs. And I think this creates actually like a stronger community. Yeah. Any other thoughts?
I'm agree with that the benefits of this, but also I think that sometimes that we have to have balance and respect people who, for example, it's very important to live in their own places, because we should be also honest that could be very difficult move to other completely context outside your far away from your family or your friends or your context. And I think that it's also valuable the people who decide stay in the places and try to do the best they can for improve the world in a space where they feel safe and comfortable. And I think two options are completely valid and important.
If I can add to this, so the question is about, is community building in LMICs valuable? I think in general, if it's just one quick question, I would say yes to it. Because when you build a community, there's more likelihood that in the future, a year from now, 2 years from now, that one good researcher for a specific cause area will come out from your community. I mean, if we stop any form of community building in LMICs, then there's less likelihood for these people to be interested or be informed of what EA is and what the things that we're working on. That being said, it may not be necessarily to be just meta community building. It can be a cause-specific community building. Some of our co-founders in EA Philippines, they started the meta thing, but now they're transitioning towards more cause-specific, like more animal welfare related or more long-termist related, because that's where their original focus was and is. And because there's now need to do the meta part, they start to do community building and the cause-specific parts, and hopefully later on get to do more research on that. So I still see the value in doing community building. With regards to the tangent question about like brain drain, I agree with Sandra. I think there should be a balance of people staying, people going. Whichever you feel that is the most impactful for you, staying or leaving. I think it's a personal choice, and I just hope that there's a community left when people all leave. I mean, I think that's sad if everyone leaves and no one remains. I think that's just the worst case. Yeah.
Awesome. With some people from LMICs from the Spanish-speaking community, we did a cool exercise, which was a session to spot our community's most common biases. And some of those were related to like being in low and middle income countries. So I'm curious to hear what you think your community's like most common biases are. you have like done this exercise or something similar.
I can start. Yeah, sorry. So I think culturally, maybe similar to Latin Americans, Filipinos are more family oriented. Like that's the basic unit of everything. So our moral circle is self, family, country. So the concept of like, hey, donate to Africa. That's a very big discussion in our discussion. It's like, why do I have to send money outside when I know my own countrymen needs money? So that's like one of the things that I think is a bias for Filipinos. Also, we are very touchy when it comes to disaster relief. Speaking about doing good better, like there was a topic there about not being pro disaster relief. And since my country is regularly affected by disasters, and because our government is not that good, we personally work on a lot of things regarding to disaster relief. So like that we have that bias towards disaster relief. We have some people who have bias towards climate change because we feel more affected by it than others. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for me, we have not done any kind of brainstorming session to kind of identify what is our bias. But I think from my own perspective, I can say because that's what we discussed during one of our last meetup. One of our community members brought it, because most people are more thinking that the only way that they can make impact or they make differences is to work on non-profit organization, like just like doing charity work, or just starting a project or working on existing organization. They don't realize that they have the opportunity to make difference while working on the other area, like aiming to give, like or kind of political engagement. Although I know that some of those kind of other area is not yet to kind of be known, to know like what kind of impact will you make, like, but I think like still there is more opportunity for the people to kind of work on the other areas so that they can be able to make different. It's not like, because it might be the case that non-profit work or like working on charity or starting project is not the best for you, or is not a good fit for you. Maybe you are more good at aiming to give, or like doing non-profit, for profit businesses, raise money and then donate to effective causes or something like this. So I think these are most of the common bias within our people or within our community. They just have this mindset that, oh, I think this has to do with tradition, because we have a lot of organization. Most of the people just think that it is only through non-profit kind of project or work, that because of the existing of many organizations that are already there in the region. So that would make kind of people believe like, okay, this is the only way that we can mostly make difference in the area. But luckily, we are able to start this discussion because one of our community members raised this concern during about one of our meetup, because most of the people's attention has gone to kind of this is what they kind of want to do during one of the career plans. He said, okay, see, I think we need to kind of also look, we can be able to make a lot of difference, considering like we have issue of like institutional decision making, like improving governance, kind of economic growth, other things that we can work on to make difference. So I think like these are the one of the most common bias. I don't know if it is bias, but I think this is the bias that I identify in our community.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, I think that along these years, I've heard very good arguments like against, both for like against and for doing local prioritization work. And for people who are interested in this, I have two recommendations to make. One is that in this EA career guide that was done with this team from India and the Philippines, we made a collection of resources where this question is discussed around, is local prioritization worth it, and when is it worth it, and who should consider doing it? Because yeah, I think that not everyone should consider doing this as a first priority. And also yesterday, Luis Mota's talk, he's from the Global Priorities Institute, and he did a talk about local prioritization. And I think he gave really clarifying terms for all of the people who are interested in local prioritization. He actually introduced a new concept that I think that is super, super helpful, and that we sometimes refer to that concept when we talk about comparative advantage, solving a global problem. He introduced the concept of contextualization research versus local prioritization research, which is pretty different, which is how can we make the most good using specific resources to do as much good as possible, like globally, which is something that is like super relevant for these discussions. Okay, I think we have some time for questions from the audience, if there are. Yes, we're good to take some questions, so yeah, feel free to raise your hands. Yes.
I'll pay that a lot.
Okay.
You're
Yeah, and we can also repeat the question if in case.
Like, assuming people from lower and middle income countries have lower earning potential, if you agree with that, what do you think are the implications for your strategy? Like, should we be more risk averse? Say, for instance, someone goes into AGI research and then it doesn't work out, doesn't have a financial cushion for that. Would the implication be that we should save up an emergency fund of 6 months worth of living costs? I don't know. Any ideas?
Yeah, I could say one thing, which is something that's quite useful when you're in a lower income country, is that the cost of living is often lower than in places like the US or UK. So sometimes your grants actually go a lot further, and that can be quite helpful, and is potentially like something to take advantage of if you're doing independent or remote work. So I think this is useful, but I do definitely like sympathize with the struggle of like, yeah, a lot of people will have less of like, will have less financial security. And I definitely don't have a problem with anyone like considering their personal interests in that way. Yeah, it's important to acknowledge those kind of disadvantages that people might have.
Yeah, I think I would also add that it's important to start thinking about like top-down interventions that can help solve these issues, or at least make them like less burdensome, because yeah, we can definitely like all empathize with this situation, and of course we can say many things, but it is true that like when people come from settings where they have less resources, they need to take other considerations into account. But when they think about their careers, many will have like familiar commitments, and that's perfectly fine, and they have to think about how to negotiate their interest of doing the most good with, okay, yes, but I have these needs and my family has these needs, and or I want to live in a certain place, or I want to have this cushion for my career, which is like very understandable. But I think that at the same time, we all need to take this like as a commitment to just remove those obstacles as much as possible. So things like, yeah, let's see if we can create scholarships or fellowships or programs so that these barriers are not that big, or make like English courses super available for people so they can improve their English and have like way more opportunities to move abroad and interact with the international community, and compensate for those like grants, for example. So yeah, like there can be resources directed towards this, and I think that it's like a very like tough problem to think about, but I think that like collectively we should all like take this commitment if we really want to have a diverse movement. Any other questions? Yes.
How do you bring cutting-edge investigations or technologies from more developed countries? And is it even worth it?
What do you mean by cutting-edge technologies?
For instance, certain investigations on, for instance, EA safety that are not done in LMIC countries, generally speaking. Is it better to try to bring it over here, or to just fly there and leave your country, basically?
I think for me, it depends on the costs. Like I think AI safety is more, people can work remotely for AI safety. So even if you're in your country, you can work, but of course there's better if there's interaction. I think for that situation, you may not be really necessary to fly off, but like for causes like alternative proteins, that will require some specific supply chain. I think that is something that's more specific, that you really have to like bring in new knowledge for you to improve your own supply chain. So I think if your cost research requires some geographic things to think about. Sorry. Yeah. So, yeah. Sorry, but
Yeah. What I just want to add is like you see some courses area like biosecurity, climate change. I think this is some of the things that even like you don't have to locally, we can work on strengthening, like on biosecurity. Now, let me just give example. We have a convention that we call Biological Weapon Convention. Is a treaty for like it's a treaty for non-plug. It's more of disarmament for biological agent. So if you look at what is going on now, like there is gap between national implementation of this, most of the provision of this treaty. So some country, like high-income country, were able to develop, have more measure on mitigating this kind of issues, like on detection, prevention. But in low-income country, like they are not even kind of have the capacity to make detection, prevention of this. But when the problem starts, it will generally affect. If you look at the cases of COVID-19, I think it started in China, but before you know it spread like globally. If you look at the Ebola virus in West Africa, the same. So I think there is kind of what do you call it, courses area that we don't have to take knowledge like locally to say we don't have to say like we don't have to be in high income country or like to go into high income country so that we can work on it. I think we can even take the knowledge from high income country and try to use that to improve our local context. So I don't know if I provide more emphasis on your question.
Yeah, I would add that it can be actually even kind of it can make sense to identify where, like in high income countries, like based on, for example, like burden of disease for specific problems, like is there like if there is a huge gap between like low middle income countries and high income countries, then it means that there is like a probably scalable solution that we can implement. If you are talking about global health, and so like just from investigating into this, we can find something important. And also, if you're talking about some cause areas where like starting and like think tanks or something like that, that if you can work remotely, you can actually save costs, but by just like moving to like middle income countries. I know that some EA orgs, some think tanks considered moving to Mexico City actually to just like lower the costs. If they can work completely remotely, like why not?
Awesome. Yes, I think we can take last question.
One more question. What I'm really curious about is, obviously there's the category of low middle income countries, and of course a lot of variety within all these countries, but also within your own country. There will obviously be many subcultural groups, different ways of categorizing people, different types of people, different types of interests. We've already talked a little bit about interest in specific causes, specific types of work. I'm really curious about the types of people within your countries that are attracted to EA as well. So are these people with particular backgrounds, educational backgrounds, or academic interests? Are they entrepreneurs, or are they professionals? Are they students? I'm curious if there's a lot of variety among yours, and also your thoughts about whether this is because of founder effect, say, like you yourselves having started this and mostly having people like you there, or whether there's other reasons why you think these particular people within your countries are most interested so far in EA.
I think I can start because like I've been trying to summarize our data. For EA Philippines, we're like around 300 people. And I started when I first started, we were like 75% university students. Now we're down to 65% university students because like we did an intro fellowship specific for professionals. In terms of interest, like most of our students and professionals are into the development sector interest. Like they want to work for nonprofits, they want to work for government. That's it. But we also have a lot of people who are working at startups. Because also with my background that I had like a startup network, and I just keep on inviting them also to our events, and they just keep on engaging because they agree with EA concepts. So there is that diversification there. But I agree that this is still somewhat biased towards the smarter population of our country. Our university groups are from the top 3 universities, and our professionals are graduates of those top universities so far. Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I think like it depends on the kind of exposure. So if you look at in our cases, most of the kind of people that we currently engage with, or we have like more of student, graduates, and few kind of professional. So I think it has to do with exposure. Yes, I agree with you, because if you look at it now, like we have some tech kind of that is booming up like in Lagos, but we are yet to kind of like reach those community. So I don't know, like maybe if reaching to them like may kind of increase interest on AICPT and alignment, or like reaching, because for me, when I started community building, I tried to also do some outreach to people that I see are already into kind of like the local charity stuff like this. But what I found out is most of them, like sometimes they are not kind of more willing to kind of change their mind, like sometimes to this kind of idea more stuff, like they don't want to change their approach, what they already started. So that's why like we just kind of have to change our approach, like to bring more young people, kind of our students. So I think it's more of exposure currently. So I definitely agree with what you said.
Okay, thank you. So we ran out of time, but thank you very much to our speakers and to the audience for attending. Yes.